Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. No cars, no voices, no messages, no footsteps. You look outside your window, and the entire world is empty. Not your city, not your country. The entire human race is gone. Billions of people disappeared overnight. But somehow, you are still here. At first, you might think it's a dream. You would call your family. No answer. You would call your friends. Nothing. You would turn on the television. No news. You would open the internet. And maybe, for a little while, some websites would still work. But nobody would be there to update them. Then you would step outside. And that's when reality would finally hit you. There would be cars sitting in the middle of roads, restaurants with food still inside, airports with empty terminals, hospitals with machines still running. Everything humans built would still be there. But the humans wouldn't. And here's the strange part. The world wouldn't immediately collapse. It would continue working, as if nothing had happened. At least, for a little while. For the first few hours, many systems would still operate automatically. Electricity could still flow. Some machines would continue running. Water could still come from your tap. Traffic lights could still change. And somewhere, a computer could still be processing information, even though there is nobody left to read it. But these systems were never designed to run forever without people. Someone has to maintain them. Someone has to repair them. Someone has to refuel them. And nobody is coming. So eventually, the first lights would begin going out. Not everywhere at once. One city, then another, until parts of the world slowly begin getting darker. And that's when you would realize something terrifying. You are not living in an abandoned world. You're living inside a machine that is slowly shutting down. After several days, the modern world would begin disappearing. Supermarkets would still be filled with food, but refrigerators would eventually stop working. Food would spoil, hospitals would become silent, fuel stations would stop operating, and water could become a serious problem. Many cities depend on pumps and treatment systems to deliver clean water. Without people maintaining those systems, running water would eventually become unreliable. And then there is the internet. At first, your phone might still connect. You could open an app, you could refresh a website, you could look at old videos. But slowly, the servers would go offline. The power would disappear. Cooling systems would stop. Networks would fail. And eventually, the internet would become a digital graveyard. Imagine opening your favorite social media app and realizing that every account you ever followed belongs to someone who is gone. No new posts, no new comments, no messages, no notifications, just the last digital footprints humanity ever left behind. Then comes the first month. And now, nature begins taking the world back. Grass pushes through cracks in roads. Plants grow through abandoned buildings. Rain begins damaging structures that were once constantly maintained. Animals begin entering places they once avoided. Traffic lights stop working. Cars become useless. Factories stop. Airports become silent. Cities that once contained millions of people could become almost completely quiet. And something important is happening. Humanity is no longer controlling the environment around it. There are no construction crews repairing roads, no workers cleaning streets, no engineers maintaining bridges, no farmers managing enormous fields. No one is cutting the grass. No one is removing fallen trees. Nature doesn't care about our borders. It doesn't care about our buildings. It doesn't care about our roads. It simply keeps growing. 1 year later, the world would look very different. Roads would begin breaking apart. Metal would rust. Wood would rot. Buildings would suffer from water damage. Plants would spread through cracks in concrete. And in many places, wildlife could begin returning. But here's the most incredible part. Earth wouldn't be destroyed by our disappearance. It would begin recovering from it. Human industrial activity would almost completely stop. Many sources of pollution would disappear. The enormous amount of noise created by billions of humans would suddenly be gone, and nature would begin filling the silence. The planet wouldn't need us to keep turning. The sun would still rise, the rain would still fall, the oceans would still move, and life would continue. 10 years later, Imagine standing in the middle of a city that once contained millions of people. No traffic, no advertisements, no construction, no airplanes crossing the sky, just wind, rain, plants, and silence. Some structures would still survive. Others would be damaged beyond recognition. Nature would slowly erase the evidence of civilization, but humanity would leave behind enormous traces. Satellites could remain in orbit for a long time. Buildings could stand for decades. Some bridges and massive structures could survive much longer. Plastic would remain. Industrial materials would remain. And some dangerous substances left behind by human technology could remain for far longer than our civilization itself. We would be gone, but our fingerprints would still cover the planet. Now imagine hundreds of years passing. The question would no longer be, where did everyone go? It would become, did humanity ever exist? Many buildings would collapse. Roads would disappear beneath vegetation. Bridges would corrode. Cities would slowly become forests of broken concrete and steel. Our languages would disappear. Our countries would disappear. Our borders would disappear. Our history would become meaningless. Unless something remained to tell the story, future life on Earth wouldn't know our names. It wouldn't know our wars. It wouldn't know our jokes. It wouldn't know our dreams. It would simply inherit the world we left behind. But there is one part of this scenario that is even more terrifying. You. Because we've been talking about the collapse of civilization. But what happens to the last person alive? Imagine knowing that there is nobody left to answer your phone call. Nobody waiting for your message. Nobody celebrating your birthday. Nobody remembering your childhood. Nobody who understands the memories inside your head. You could have access to an entire planet and still feel completely powerless. You could walk into the biggest city on Earth and not hear a single human voice. You could enter a stadium built for tens of thousands of people and sit there completely alone. You could stand in front of the world's greatest monuments and realize that there is nobody left to admire them, because humans aren't built only to survive. We're built to connect. That's what makes this scenario so frightening. The world could still have food, water, buildings, technology, energy. But what would any of it mean if there was nobody to share it with? Eventually, you might stop thinking about survival. You might start thinking about meaning. Because human civilization was never just the buildings. It was the people inside them. Every restaurant existed because someone cooked there. Every school existed because someone taught there. Every song existed because someone wanted another person to hear it. Every photograph existed because someone wanted a moment to be remembered. And every message on your phone was written because someone cared enough to send it. If everyone disappeared tomorrow, the world wouldn't end. Humanity would. And perhaps the strangest part of all is that the planet wouldn't stop. Earth would keep turning. The oceans would keep moving. The forests would keep growing. The sun would keep rising every morning. Animals would continue living. Life would continue without us. So maybe the real question isn't, what if everyone disappeared tomorrow? Maybe the real question is, what would humanity leave behind if tomorrow was our last day? What would you leave behind?